In the year 480 BC, the ancient world trembled beneath the weight of an empire that believed itself unstoppable. The Persian Empire ruled from the edges of India to the coasts of Asia Minor, and its king Xerxes I inherited not only the throne but the ambition of domination over all lands that still resisted his rule. Greece was one of the last. Fragmented, divided, and stubbornly independent, it represented an idea far more dangerous than any army: freedom to the Persians. Greece was unfinished business left behind by earlier failures, and Xerxes intended to erase it completely. He assembled a force so vast that even ancient historians struggled to describe it without exaggeration, and yet the terror it inspired was real. Entire nations marched beneath Persian banners, soldiers drawn from dozens of cultures speaking different tongues, but united by fear, loyalty, and the promise of overwhelming force. To oppose such an army seemed madness. Greece knew it could not meet Persia in open battle. There were too few men, too many rivalries, and too much hesitation. Some city-states submitted without resistance, believing survival under Persian rule preferable to annihilation. Others delayed, hoping the storm would pass. Only a few understood that delay was death by another name. Among them was Sparta, a city that did not value wealth or comfort or art, but valued discipline, obedience, and war above all else. Spartan society existed for one purpose: to produce soldiers who would never retreat, never surrender, and never fear death. From childhood, Spartan boys were taken from their families, trained to endure hunger, pain, and hardship without complaint. By adulthood, they were weapons shaped by the state, and loyalty to Sparta was absolute. When news of the Persian advance reached Greece, the question was not whether to fight, but where. Geography would have to do what numbers could not. There was one place where the vast Persian army could be slowed to a crawl: a narrow coastal pass in northern Greece, where mountains pressed against the sea, leaving only a thin strip of land wide enough for a road. This place was known as Thermopylae, the hot gates named for the sulfur springs that steamed from the earth. Here an army of hundreds of thousands would be forced to fight a few men at a time. Here discipline could matter more than numbers. Sparta chose its king Leonidas, the first to lead the defense. Leonidas understood the reality of the situation immediately. Religious law prevented Sparta from sending its full army due to a sacred festival, but Leonidas did not argue with fate. Instead, he selected 300 men, each one a veteran, each one with a living son to carry on his name. This was not an accident. It was an acceptance that none of them would return. Alongside them marched allies from other Greek city-states, including Thespians and Thebans, bringing the total force to perhaps 7,000 men. They were not enough to win a war, but they were enough to buy time. When Xerxes arrived at Thermopylae, he was confused by what he saw. A small force blocked the pass and made no attempt to flee. For 4 days he waited, expecting fear to do his work. Surely these men would scatter once they realized the scale of the army before them. They did not. On the 5th day, Xerxes sent a messenger offering mercy if the Greeks would surrender their weapons. Leonidas' response was simple and defiant: "Come and take them." The Persian attack began immediately. Wave after wave of infantry surged forward, confident that numbers alone would crush the defenders. But the pass betrayed them. Only a handful of soldiers could engage at once, and the Greeks fought in tight formation shields, locked spears thrusting with relentless rhythm. Spartan discipline turned the narrow ground into a killing field. Men rotated from the front line to prevent exhaustion, advancing, retreating, and advancing again with terrifying precision. Persian soldiers fell by the hundreds, their bodies clogging the narrow road, their momentum shattered by men who refused to break. Xerxes ordered his elite troops forward, including the Immortals, his personal guard chosen for skill and loyalty. They fared no better. The Greeks fought not with rage but with method, and the Persians found themselves unable to use their numbers effectively. 2 days passed, and still the line held. Xerxes watched in disbelief as his army failed again and again. This was not how conquest was supposed to work. This was not how subjects behaved. But empires endure not through courage alone, but through inevitability, and inevitability arrived in the form of betrayal. A local Greek named Ephialtes revealed a hidden mountain path that bypassed the pass and allowed Persian forces to attack from behind. When Leonidas learned of this, he understood that the battle was lost, but the mission remained. Greece needed time. He dismissed most of the Greek allies, ordering them to withdraw and live to fight another day. He remained with his 300 Spartans, along with a small force of Thespians who refused to leave, and a contingent of Thebans held by obligation. They prepared to die. On the 3rd day, the Persians attacked from both sides. The fighting was brutal, close, and desperate. Spears broke, swords were drawn, and the Spartans fought with a ferocity born not of hope, but of resolve. Leonidas was killed early in the battle, and his body became the center of a vicious struggle as Spartans fought to recover it while Persians sought to claim it as proof of victory. One by one the defenders fell surrounded, overwhelmed, but never surrendering. By the end, the last Greeks stood on a small hill fighting with hands, teeth, and broken weapons until they were finally cut down. Thermopylae fell, Persia advanced. But something unexpected happened. The story spread. Across Greece, the tale of a small force that stood against an empire and refused to yield ignited resistance. Cities that had hesitated now prepared for war. Men who had doubted now believed. And centuries later, when empires rose and fell, the story of the 300 endured as proof that discipline, unity, and resolve could defy even the greatest power on earth. This was not a tale of numbers. It was a lesson written in blood, that freedom demands a price. And sometimes that price is everything. When the last Greek defenders fell at Thermopylae, the road into central Greece lay open, and to the Persian king Xerxes I, it appeared that the world had returned to its natural order. The pass was taken, the resistance broken, and the lesson delivered. No force, no matter how disciplined, could stand forever against empire. Yet what Xerxes failed to understand was that Thermopylae was never meant to stop him. It was meant to speak, and its message spread faster than any army. As Persian forces marched south, the story of the stand at the hot gates moved ahead of them, carried by messengers, refugees, and soldiers who had survived because others chose to die. Across Greece, the meaning of resistance changed. Fear did not vanish, but it hardened into resolve. Cities that had once debated submission now prepared for war because Thermopylae had proved something essential. The Persians could bleed. The empire was not divine. It could be challenged. Xerxes entered Greece, expecting surrender, and instead found defiance growing in his wake. Athens was evacuated, its population fleeing to the islands and the Peloponnese, while Persian troops burned the empty city to the ground. Temples were destroyed, statues smashed, and the Acropolis reduced to ash. Xerxes believed this act would crush Greek morale. Instead, it confirmed everything the defenders at Thermopylae had died for. There would be no compromise with an empire that erased gods and homes alike. The Greek strategy shifted from land to sea. They knew they could not defeat Persia through sheer numbers, but they could exploit terrain once again. The narrow straits near the island of Salamis offered another opportunity where Persian scale would become weakness. The Greek fleet, smaller but more maneuverable, waited as the Persian navy advanced, confident in its size and experience. Xerxes watched the coming battle from a golden throne set upon the shore, certain that he would witness final victory. The Persians entered the strait in massive numbers, their ships crowding together, struggling to maneuver as currents and wind worked against them. The Greeks struck with precision, ramming, boarding, and breaking ships apart in the confined waters. Chaos spread through the Persian fleet as commands failed to travel and ships collided with one another. By the end of the day, the Persian navy lay shattered. Xerxes watched as the sea filled with wreckage and bodies, and the illusion of inevitability collapsed before his eyes. The victory at Salamis changed the course of the war. Without naval dominance, Persian supply lines were vulnerable, and the massive army that had marched into Greece now faced hunger, isolation, and uncertainty. Xerxes withdrew much of his force back toward Asia, leaving a general to continue the campaign on land, but the momentum had shifted. The Greeks now believed they could win, not just delay defeat. The following year at Plataea, Greek hoplites met Persian forces in open battle and achieved decisive victory. The invasion ended. The empire retreated, yet the shadow of Thermopylae remained longer than any battlefield triumph. Salamis and Plataea were victories of strategy and numbers, but Thermopylae was a victory of meaning. It became the foundation upon which Greek identity hardened. The idea that free men could choose death rather than submission became central to how Greece understood itself and how it wished to be remembered. For Xerxes, the campaign left scars that no victory could erase. He returned to Persia having commanded the greatest army the world had ever seen and having failed to subdue a collection of small city-states. His authority endured, but his legend changed. No longer the unstoppable ruler of all lands, he became the king who had been defied and delayed by men who refused to kneel. The Spartans returned Leonidas' body to his homeland and honored him as a hero, not because he had won, but because he had chosen correctly. His sacrifice became lore story and lesson passed down through generations. Spartan mothers would later tell their sons to return with their shield or upon it, because Thermopylae had proven that survival without honor was meaningless. Thermopylae also transformed how war itself was understood. It demonstrated that morale, narrative, and sacrifice could outweigh numbers and wealth. Empires could win battles and still lose wars if they failed to break the spirit of those they conquered. Xerxes burned cities, killed thousands, and marched deeper than any Persian king before him, yet the act of resistance at the hot gates ensured that his conquest would never be complete. In later centuries, writers, philosophers, and rulers returned again and again to Thermopylae, not because of its tactical brilliance, but because of its moral clarity. The defenders knew they would die. They were not deceived. They were not misled. They walked into the pass understanding the cost and accepting it fully. That choice elevated the battle from history into symbol. Empires rose and fell after Persia. Armies grew larger, weapons more advanced, and strategies more complex. But the lesson of Thermopylae remained unchanged. Power can be delayed by terrain, but it is broken by will. Fear can command obedience, but it cannot command belief. The Persians controlled land, but the Greeks claimed meaning. For centuries, the number 300 would carry weight far beyond its arithmetic value. It would represent unity, discipline, and refusal. It would remind future generations that history is not shaped only by those who survive, but by those who choose how they are remembered. Thermopylae was not the moment Greece won its freedom. It was the moment Greece decided it deserved it. And in that decision, the Persian Empire encountered something it could not conquer. Not an army, an idea. And ideas do not die at the end of a spear.